Hey there eBay, Chris or TACCOM again. This video is going to touch base on these alternative transfer guides for assumption of liability. There's a couple of these that I've found listed on eBay here and there. There's some for 25 bucks, there's a couple for $1, and there's some that actually include a little bit of information in the description, and then if you buy the rest of the item you get nothing more than either a document or a PDF explaining the alternative process. So let me get straight to the point. There is no alternative, okay? Ever since that November 14th policy, people have been flipping out over that they may not be able to get their line or that they don't qualify for whatever reason. I don't understand why they put these things up, because there is no other alternative. Let's put it this way, if you want to put a line in your name, that's an assumption of liability. If you do anything such as rent, lease, take out a line through somebody else. For example, if you want to pay $2,000 to get your name down on a list to say that you can lease or rent one of my lines for a year or 2 years, the line is still in my name. That's not an assumption of liability. An assumption of liability is the complete takeover of a line and putting it in your name. It's taking it from the original account owner. Say I, Chris, am the original account owner. I want to sell you my line. If it goes into your name, your account, under your tax ID, your social security, whatever, as long as it's in your name, that is an assumption of liability. Anything else is not an assumption of liability. So, for example, here's a listing for $25 called, Alternative X-Fer Guide for AOL for Unlimited Data Plans. It says you're buying instructions on how to sell or buy unlimited data plan without losing the data. Verizon changed its policy, blah, blah. A lot of people are finding out they lose the unlimited data. Wrong. If you don't know what you're doing, that's your fault, okay? It is very difficult to lose the data, especially if you've got somebody who knows what they're doing, like me, on the phone doing the assumption. They say this method that I'm selling actually works, and it even says this is not a how-to with an AOL. It's a how-to without those trapped AOLs. Okay, stop. Time out. An AOL is not a trap. An assumption of liability is making sure that that line gets in your name, because back to what I said, if you want to pay $2,000 just to rent a line from me, just to have it in your name on the list, and then you still have to turn around and pay the monthly cost, that sounds more like a trap to me than an assumption. So let's get this straight. Anything that does not put the line in your name is not an assumption of liability. So let me save you the time and money right now from buying these documents written up by people who just found a workaround. Don't waste your time or money, okay? My other videos have described this. If you're a consumer with unlimited data, you don't have to worry about anything. If you've got unlimited data on your consumer account, you can buy a line off eBay, do an assumption of liability, a legitimate one, put it in your account, in your name, and keep your unlimited data. As long as you don't screw up the code or, tell the rep, hey, I'm going to put this on a jetpack with unlimited data. If you do that, you're going to lose it, because that's the first rule of thumb. Don't ever bring up jetpack and unlimited data during an assumption. If you're a business, it doesn't matter. Business accounts with a tax ID can bring in unlimited data. They don't have to have pre-existing data. That's the easiest way to do it, is to have a business account. Now, if you're a consumer and you have no unlimited data lines, unfortunately, and as with my videos before, you're going to have to either open a business account with a tax ID. I've provided all this information already. You get yourself a business account with Verizon with the tax ID, get it set up, and then you can AOL in or transfer an unlimited data line to your name and keep the data. Now, if for whatever reason you don't have the time, effort, money, or energy, or the intellect of how to just click a link and go through with that process, You can, use a friend's or a family's account. If they have unlimited data on their consumer, if you've got a friend that's willing to let you put a line in on their account, granted, as long as you pay for it, because I don't think your friend's going to pay $1,000 just to put a line on their account for you to use. But if they're willing to do that for you, if they're willing to give you a spot on their consumer account because they have data, more power to them. But unless that's the case, you're going to have to get it in your name. Any method that does not put that line in your name is not an assumption of liability, and it doesn't make you responsible for the line. So, for example, let's say if we use one of these Alt-Xfer guides, and we're going to use me, for example. We take your Alt-Xfer. You put down $2,000 so that you can, reserve a spot in my corporate account to put your line that you're going to rent for whatever, let's say 2 years, at what I've seen mostly now is $200 a month. Fucking rip off. But for example purposes, so $2,000 gets you a 2-year lease at $200 a month to get an unlimited data line that you can use on your jetpack. Okay, here's my problem. Let's say you go to Canada, or you go to Mexico, or you go anywhere out of the U.S. where it's not territorial, St. George's Island and all that, Jamaica, it might be covered, that's fine. But as soon as you cross into the Canadian border, you're going to incur global data usage. And at $4.99 a megabyte, guess who's responsible for those global data overages? This guy. Not you, this guy. So, no, I don't recommend anybody do anything except an assumption of liability in their name, because if I'm going to rent out to you, I'm going to make sure that there's a contract agreement that if you incur any charges whatsoever, if it's global data, roaming, overages, you're going to be liable to pay it, because if it's not in your name, how are you financially obligated to pay for the account? And I'll be damned if I'm going to let you rent a line just because you have it in an agreement, an alternative agreement. I'm not going to let you rent a line and then rack up charges that I have to front and pay for. That's not an assumption of liability. So let's get this straight. Your best bet, just for the sake of financial obligation, because unless you want a lawsuit down the road because you go to Canada or you go to Mexico and rack up, $5,000 in data. I've had this happen on a line, and we got it taken care of very quickly. It was an oversight on Verizon's end. Unless you want to go and do that and have a lawsuit, because if you were to do that with me, your ass is going to court, because that's not part of the agreement. You need to do the assumption of liability because it's still possible. It is the only difference and the only thing that has changed. The only thing that has changed from November 14th is consumer accounts must have data already on their account. That's it. If you have a business, a legitimate business, you can use your tax ID, open up a Verizon business account, and not only if you have 5 lines, not only do you get the 8% off the entire bill and the 25% off the accessories, but you will find that Verizon business reps are much more knowledgeable than any consumer rep, and overall, satisfaction-wise, I have nothing against business whatsoever. So, over these alternative X-Fer guides on how to assume a line and keep your data, it's a waste of time and money. And why risk putting your line in somebody else's name, which that would be pretty stupid for them to take the financial responsibility of it should you incur fees. Why risk that? Have that person shut you down at any point in time, because if it's in their account, they can suspend the line. They can manipulate the line, they can do a device ID, a SIM swap, a change, they can sell the line, they can assume the line off the account without your authorization or your knowledge. And guess what? You're screwed, because if you did sink in, $1,000 for whatever, a corporate, or $700 for unlimited talk and text, if it's in somebody else's account and in their name, they have every right to do what they want to do with it. So let's go about this the legitimate way, like I've said before. Get yourself a consumer account that already has unlimited data and throw your line in there through an assumption of liability so it's in your name. Or if you have a legitimate tax, or if you are a business, or if you want a business, you can get a legitimate tax ID, employee identification number, open a business account in AOL in your one and only line as unlimited data. That way it's in your name, it's in your responsibility, and you're financially obligated to pay it. I mean, it makes no sense to me why you would want to risk doing a rental or a lease and put your line that you bought and paid for in somebody else's account so that they can do whatever they wish with it, because words mean nothing nowadays. You'll find that out real quick, that if anybody has access to an item in their Verizon account that's well over $1,000, do you honestly think they're going to keep it intact and not send it off to make money? Be real here, okay? These alternative X-Fer guides are more of a risk than anything, and they're not a trap. An assumption of liability is not a trap. It's an agreement that you agree to take over a line and pay for it. That's all it is. It's like the title to a car. If you buy a car, you're signing the title and the bill of sale, and it's becoming a part of your property since it's now in your name. Same concept. So, I mean, this is a how-to. Without those trapped AOLs, you're not getting trapped with anything. Your terms and conditions in your contract agreement is your trap, and if you want to get out of that, that's $350. So instead of putting your line in an alternative account for assumption purposes, after paying $1,000 or $500 or $700 for a line and putting it in an Alt-Xfer guide method, you're going to lose the line. That's a trap, because you're losing your money, not only your line, the money you've sank into whatever. That's a trap more than an assumption of liability. On AOL, you're dealing with only one person, well, two people, Verizon and yourself. It's the safest way to do it, and as long as you know what you're doing with it, you're not going to have any problems. So I'm going to save you the time and money right now. These alternative X-Fer guides, you need to blow out the window, because nobody in their right mind that's a data trader is going to rent or lease a line for you for 2 years and then be personally and financially obligated to pay your bill whether or not you pay on time, and especially if you incur overages, they're not going to pay for it. And nowadays it's very hard to trust people, so if you do want to put it in somebody else's account, don't be surprised if they go and sell it off to somebody else, and guess what? After they do that, there's nothing you can do to get it back. So avoid these alternative X-Fer guides and stick with the traditional method, because it can still be done. Consumer with unlimited data, or get yourself a business so you can get the tax ID and the benefits and discounts that go along with it. With that said, unfortunately, I could not find the one that I bought a few months back and read over, but the seller even explicitly stated that it's not an assumption of liability. Well, then if it's not an assumption of liability, it's not going in your name. You need to make sure this line goes in your name so you have control over it, you have control over the payment, and you have control over any other features, manipulation, and data whatsoever. Because if it's not in your name and somebody else has rights to it, you might as well just kiss it goodbye. So let me save you the hassle. Stick with the assumption of liability. If you want to buy a line from me and you're a consumer, I'll be on the phone. If you're a business and you want me to be on the phone, I'll be on the phone, because my job's not done until that line with unlimited data is in your account. In the meantime, you need to blow these people off that are trying to sell you alternative X-Fer guides, because they're setting you up for failure. And I'm warning you right now, you don't want to lose $1,700 for a phone line. If you have any questions, leave a comment. Otherwise, expect quite a few more videos to come up bashing these people that are trying to get, work around and slam your lack of knowledge. Cheers.